panelists, attendees, everyone who's joined us today. So it's nice to see all the names popping up who've been invited to the meeting. So thanks very much for joining us. Quick introduction to me. For those of you who don't know me, I am Rob Porter. I am the Associate Director for Community at the IMechE, which is a role that I've held since August 2023. Prior to that, I was Head of Events and Member Engagement. Prior to that, Head of Events. And prior to that, Head of Knowledge Transfer. And I've been at the IMechE since 2017. So 7 years now. And I've come from an events background originally, but I've been working in the IMechE obviously for quite a while now. So I've become used to working in a membership organisation, working for charity, and there are lots of really good points about working in an organisation like this, not least the members and the volunteers. So we're here today to talk a bit about that. Okay, I'm really proud to be introducing and moderating this panel session. I would say it's quite pivotal, and it's pivotal for several reasons. Firstly, it marks the start of International Volunteers Week, which runs from the 3rd to the 9th of June. Now, that is a week celebrating volunteering, which is administered by an organisation called the National Council for Volunteering Organisations. And you can see the website volunteersweek.org to find out what activities are going on. So there's no coincidence that this panel is timed to start this week. Secondly, why I think it's pivotal, it's the first session in a new monthly rolling programme of activity designed to help upskill and provide resources for our volunteer community. So this is the intro session to that, and I'm very pleased to be introducing it. And thirdly, it takes place during the week of the presidential address, which is the first. This is the first big week of the new presidential year. Our current president, Clive Hickman, OBE, took office on the 23rd of May at the AGM, and this Wednesday is his presidential address, where he'll be setting out the theme for this year. And it's, of course, a very important time for the IMechE as we work towards delivering our strategy. So I've got some panelists with me today. I'll be asking them to introduce themselves in a minute. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about why we're here today and what this session is aiming to achieve. So it's an hour-long session. I'll stop waffling in a minute and we can get down to it. But we'll be aiming to wrap up by 1 o'clock UK time. That's 1 o'clock British summer time. And and during that time, I'll be having a conversation with my three panelists today, and you'll have the opportunity to submit questions via the chat, as Donovan has explained to those of you who joined earlier. And so please do feel free to contribute to this session. I'm really glad to have so many of you here today. Now, why are we here? You may or may not be aware, hopefully you are, that our immediate past president, Giles Hartill, announced a new strategy this time last year. It's called Strategy 2030. And it sets out the vision for IMechE to become a global, inclusive, digitally enabled engineering community by the year 2030. One of the first steps of this was to restructure our organisation in acknowledgement of the four main capabilities of the IMechE, which are recognition of professional standards primarily, community, which is the capability that I'm looking after as Associate Director, expertise, which primarily concerns our link with organisations, with employers, and the knowledge first services that we provide to them, and impact. And I'm very pleased to say I have the Associate Director for Impact here with me today, who can tell us about what impact means. And as well as those capabilities, there are a series of strategic enablers which enable us to deliver on them. So that restructure was only on the staff side. So although the teams have been reorganised internally, actually we rely on a small army of volunteers to do quite a lot of that work for us. So what does that mean? How do we organise that? How does that work? In this panel, we're going to start asking some of those questions and coming up with some tentative answers for that, I think. And so yes, that's what we're here for. Essentially, the reason that I'm chairing this is because community is the part of the organisation which looks after the volunteer workforce in terms of the services and tools that we provide for them. So if I could please have the first slide, I'll just talk very quickly about some of those things. So the IMechE community volunteers, which at last count was just over 5,500 volunteers. That number does change as the year goes through, so you will see that number vary somewhat. In order to look after them and look after you as volunteers and provide you with the tools and resources that you need, we have a volunteer development and training manager, Donovan, who's very kindly moderating this, the chat of this webinar today. And we have created a new online volunteer resource centre, which sits behind the My Account login of your online your website account. It's accessible to all members. There you can see the link to it below. It will require you to log in. There'll be a link to it coming up in the chat as well. And there it goes. Thank you very much, Donovan, very timely. We also have recently launched improved communication tools for the local volunteer networks. So we've released a new mass mailing system called .digital, which has we've just completed a program of formal user training, and there will be virtual training available on demand. For those who haven't caught that, essentially it provides improved functionality for our volunteer networks who use it in terms of reporting, branding, and flexibility. We've also launched this program of virtual webinars. This is the first of them, to help keep you informed about what's going on at the IMechE, as well as hopefully get some conversations going. There's the new volunteer portal on its way. Now that aims to enable better and more effective recruitment for volunteer roles. I'm really excited to be able to talk about that soon. There's also a discount that's been arranged on all training courses run by our learning and development team for volunteers, and that's a hefty 50%. So some information has just been put into the chat about that, but I really do recommend that you, if you're a volunteer, you take advantage of this, because it really is a hefty discount on the training that we provide as an organisation, which is first rate, I have to say. So if you wouldn't mind progressing to the next slide. Just you can see this. I'm not going to read all these out, but you can see this is a taster of some of the webinars that we're going to be running over the course of this year. There'll be to tell you a little bit more about the first one at the end, but there's, as you can see, as well as discussions, we're going to be able to introduce you to some important people that you should get to know at the IMechE, some important processes that you need to follow, and some updates on some important things that volunteers need to be aware of. So, okay, fantastic. And then I'm going to think we will move quickly on to the final slide, please, Donovan. So it's to meet the panel. So I've already introduced myself, so I'm not going to do that again. But I'm going to hand over then to my colleagues here, who are going to say a few words about themselves. So Joyce, please say hello.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. My name is Joyce. I am the Associate Director for Impact at IMechE. My background is in associations and in membership networks. I spent a few years in consulting, helping companies actually measure and manage their social impact programs. I've worked across a number of organizations and started my own consultancy almost 10 years ago, and have worked with a number of organizations on public engagement and the challenges of women in STEM internationally.
Okay, thanks very much, Joyce. It's great to have you here. Now over to Supun.
Hi, everyone. My name is Supun Fernanda. So I'm an active IMechE volunteer, and I'm joining this panel discussion today in my capacity as a Young Members Board representative. So just a quick introduction to the Young Members Board, if I may, Rob, as well. The young members of the institutions are any affiliates, associates, or members who have achieved professional registration within the last 10 years. And the Young Members Board is formed of over 40 individuals representing regions, divisions, groups, and other operational boards. So we, as the Young Members Board, are responsible for bringing the views of young members to the forefront of discussion and drive projects that support our IMechE strategy. From a professional perspective, I'm a chartered engineer with a mechanical engineering background. Today, I'm a product manager at Edwards, the global leader in vacuum and abatement solutions for semiconductor manufacturing. And then personally, I was born in Sri Lanka, beautiful tropical island in the Indian Ocean. And of course, I now live in the UK.
Thanks very much, Supun. That's a great introduction to yourself. And over to Anjali, our final panelist of the day.
Hello everyone, I'm Anjali Blagborough. I'm the manager of the Member Networks team within the community's capability. By way of background, I actually studied classics at university and started my career in the financial world before going into project management. I spent much of my life volunteering, which is what drew me into working at the institution in the first place. I've been at IMechE now for about 7.5 years, always working within the member engagement remit. I've had various different roles, always working with volunteers, so things like education outreach, on the challenges like Apprentice Automation Challenge, the young members, and in more recent years, the UK and international regions, the divisions and groups, and the prizes and awards.
Okay, thanks very much, Anjali. So Anjali's a member of my team, I should say, as well, and looks after a huge number of volunteers all told. So it's really good to have you on the panel today, Anjali. Okay, so I'm going to start by asking each of the panelists a tailored, bespoke question for them. So I'm going to start with you, Supun. Can you share us a bit about your journey? Now, it's a very interesting one, having come from Sri Lanka and then moving to the UK. Can you tell us a bit about that, how you first got involved in volunteering and what's motivated you to keep it up?
Absolutely. So from a personal background, obviously, I've moved from Sri Lanka and moved to the UK, which came with its own sort of cultural differences and cultural awareness is a big piece for me around all of that stuff. But I think coming on to sort of the volunteering piece of it is I've been volunteering with the institution for almost 10 years now. So I started my volunteering journey by joining a regional young members panel, which for me at the time was the Sussex and Surrey young members panel. And when I moved to Bristol for my current job, I joined the Bath and Bristol young members panel. So this was after uni. And in parallel, I also started volunteering as an independent mentor to support developing engineers who are working towards your professional registration, whether it's, CEng, IMechE, EngTech, etc. Eventually, along that sort of same theme, I also got trained up as a professional review interview volunteer. So which all held together quite nicely. And then from there, I joined the Young Members Board, representing the qualifications and memberships board, which really pulled together my previous experience being on regional young members panels and my experience around supporting professional registration. It really pulled those two themes together and helped me sort of get into my current position as the Young Members Board representative on, representing the qualifications and memberships.
Okay, fantastic. What is it? what's been the sort of the driving force behind that? What's motivated you to continue doing it over all that time?
Absolutely. So what's motivated me to continue? There's many factors. Let me summarize 3 key elements, I think. So let's go with the first one. I think rewarding, a sense of reward, right? So volunteering has been tremendously rewarding to me, being able to support other engineers and then promote engineering through a variety of events and initiatives, whether it's through my time on the young members panels or the young members board. It has been, ultimately it's a sense of reward from being able to have a voice and make an impact. Number 2, I would say, is cultivating a network of incredibly motivated volunteers. The Young Members Board, as an example, is a very diverse and inclusive group of engineers, and working together with such a group has really motivated me. In some of our meetings, sort of the energy in the room is absolutely incredible, and that's a real motivational factor. And number 3, I think, from an initial or continuing professional development side of things, I think volunteering definitely helps towards developing your competencies around leadership, communication, ethics, and that really helps with, especially if you're working towards professional registration. These are some of the skills and experiences you can draw from volunteering with the IMechE will help towards some of those competency development as well. So for me, I think it's those 3 things: reward, network, CPD.
Okay, that's really helpful, Soup. That's a really good story to hear, actually. So, Anjali, then over to you. Now, thinking about it from the other side, you've been managing IMechE volunteers, and you've been working with IMechE volunteers for over 7.5 years. And what have you learned along the way? What and how have things changed in recent years?
I've learned a lot over the past 7 years. So there are a few areas. So I think one, working with volunteers in all different aspects, I've really been able to gain those insights into the workings of the institution, its governance, our committee structures. For me personally, also engineering in itself, attending events, meeting. I've learned a lot about engineering, which has been great for my own personal growth and knowledge. One of the key things I think is the vast extent of volunteering opportunities there are available to our members for all age groups, backgrounds, levels of experience, and geographical locations, and really how essential volunteers are. We couldn't do the work that we do without the dedication of our volunteers, and I think that is one of the biggest things is really seeing that dedication. Despite evolving circumstances, our volunteers remain a constant, which is so incredibly inspiring and motivating to see. In terms of what has changed over the years, we've changed significantly, a lot due to the pandemic, obviously. There's been a massive shift towards more virtual business operations, which has had many benefits. We see things being more efficient. We're able to be more inclusive now. We've really enhanced global connectivity here and participation with our international volunteers without those face-to-face obstacles. So we're seeing more international members on things like the divisions and groups, for example. And I think really also I've seen kind of really strengthening links and engagement across the board, greater collaboration, whether that's committees, members, even I think staff and members were working together a lot more to align and achieve our goals. And then I think finally, whilst virtual has been fantastic and opened up a lot of opportunities, I think the past kind of year or two has really shown us how important that face-to-face engagement remains. And we now need to kind of find a balance where we can have a moderated return to those face-to-face events and maintain those kind of personal connections and networking.
Great, thanks, Anjali. Lots of food for thought there. Okay, so now over to Joyce. Now, Joyce has joined the IMechE relatively recently. So can you tell us, your role, of course, is Associate Director for Impact. Can you tell us about how you see impact being defined at the IMechE, and what role you think the volunteer community has to deliver it.
Indeed. So my role is to help and shape the way impact is defined and measured and managed across the IMechE. Also to showcase the impact of engineers, of our members and our staff, and promote the importance of engineering as it benefits society as a whole. So for us, impact is a measure of change, which allows us to see the results of any given activity. So this change can come in a number of ways. We can look at how improving well-being, we can look at a growth of understanding, we can look at contributing to positive skills and behavioral change, how we move the needle in terms of contributing to access for underrepresented communities. But we also look at things that around sort of positive environmental and positive social change. So measuring impact helps us tell the story of who we are, why we do what we do, and where we're going. So volunteers and the volunteer community is absolutely instrumental in delivering impact for the IMechE. They contribute to outreach, they assist in accreditation, they assist in supporting our policy initiatives as well. So the goal for the IMechE is to improve the world through engineering, and each activity we do moves us closer to that goal. And whether you're delivering it locally, nationally, internationally, volunteers are absolutely instrumental in telling the story, about the past, the present, and the future. For me, I've been involved as a volunteer. I've come from an association and membership background. So when I was working at the Council for the Advancement and Support of Education, the entire programming was delivered by practitioners in terms of alumni relations, marketing, communications, both in the UK and international universities. I also spent time working at the National Council for Voluntary Organizations and on the advocacy team there, providing sort of one-stop shop for advice for community groups as well. Again, the importance of volunteering and what volunteers do and how they link up to our goals is really important as well. And as a volunteer, I sit on an advisory board for Africa Archive, which is a community-led digital archive for African researchers and communicators. So working with the scholarship on the African continent, providing a not-for-profit platform to upload working papers, reprints, manuals, and that sort of thing. And then lastly, my other bit of volunteering is for the Parry Valley Africa Research Institute at the University of Bristol, where I sit as a board member there. And it's about bringing together relevant expertise on the African continent with universities in and around the UK, and providing sort of meaningful collaborations in that sense as well.
That's great. Thank you, Joyce. That's quite a portfolio of activities, volunteer activities. So that's great. Okay, there's loads of topics we can focus on here, and I'm really keen to hear the questions from our attendees as well. If anyone's got anything specific to focus on, do please put them in the chat, as Donovan has said. Let's focus perhaps on an area that's been of great interest to me, which is around it's around motivation and what the reasons for why people get into volunteering. And Supan has been really good at sort of defining those into three areas: the sense of reward you get from supporting other engineers, the benefits of being able to cultivate a network, and also the sort of competencies that you develop being a volunteer. I'm going to direct this first question to Anjali, actually. So you've been working in this area for a long time now. What is it? Do you think? What do you think? What do volunteers have in common? And what are some of the sort of the more surprising reasons that you've come across with for members to sort of stick their hand up and want to do something? Because I know that there've been a few over the years.
So I think the main common threads are like what Supan said. It's the networking, it's the giving back, it's the career advancement. I think I primarily see a lot to do with that networking. It's that social connections, meeting people. We've definitely had a couple of, I think young member board weddings over the years where people have found their significant others and kind of good friends for life. So those are always really lovely to hear. But I think that's the main things. I think also it's really about that career advancement. It's gaining those skills that you might not be able to get in the workplace, particularly those kind of leadership skills. And I think the confidence you see as well, people being able to practice their presentation skills and kind of being able to kind of speak out. So I think those are, for me, the things I've seen the most.
Okay, yeah, that's right. And as you say, I mean, the IMechE is a great dating agency as well. If you, as a side effect of all this great networking, you do meet, it's possible to meet your future partner and spouse. So yeah, Supan, what's people you've met over the years? What's the what have you found that everyone's got in common? You mentioned that the YMB is diverse and inclusive, and that's motivating. Can you perhaps unpack that a little bit more, because there's such a range of personalities, isn't there? And
absolutely, and I think from a sort of diverse perspective, I'm talking diverse from a range of contexts, right?
Yeah.
And if you take the young members board, just the definition of young members, for example, right? You could, like I said at the start, you've got affiliates, associates, and members within 10 years of gaining their professional registration. So simply, if we just look at it from an age perspective, perhaps as well, and a career experience perspective, you've got that diverse range of career experiences and technical experiences that you have on the young members board, which is really interesting, because you can have sort of students, graduates, and then people like myself who have been in the industry for a bit of time, I suppose, but still within that 10 years of becoming chartered, right? So you've got quite a range of perspectives, which is really encouraging. And also regionally, because you got different regional representations. Now, something I want to highlight here as well is, we are a global institution. Now, even on the Young Members Board, for several of our events recently, we've been collaborating with the international peers as well. And I think that's quite important, because, if you're someone who wants to get into volunteering and you may not be working in a company that's a multinational company, right? Now join the IMechE and perhaps things like the Young Members Board suddenly opens up these opportunities to collaborate with peers from around the world, right, across. And this helps develop your cultural awareness around sort of the national boundaries and cultural awareness side of things, which is something that's close to my heart. So even if it's not particularly international members, even within the YMB, you've got people like myself who've come from different backgrounds, perhaps. So we do bring in that sort of dynamic, diverse environment, which I think is really great, because you get so many different perspectives, and perspective helps drive strategy, I think.
Yes, that's true, and I think, as well as driving strategy, I think it helps deliver strategies. So, this is a key thing for us now. So the strategy, which if you've not for the attendees, if you've not already looked at it, you can find it on the IMechE web page. As I mentioned before, the vision is to be a global, inclusive, digitally enabled engineering community. What that means and how that works really is still being defined, and we need the perspectives of members to help us define it, but also help us get there. So it's activities like this where we're fact finding and discovering these sorts of things. So then, interesting to talk about. You mentioned about the regional connections here, the panels, the regional and international perspectives. Anjali, your team look after the regional strategy board and the regional network, as well as the international strategy board, which is the non-UK equivalent. What would you say the dynamics of membership of these boards has been in recent years, particularly since COVID? Have we seen a change in how these boards are operating and how these communities are developing?
Yeah, I think we've seen a massive change over the past couple of years. I think one of the biggest changes is particularly amongst the international strategy board and the regional strategy board is we're now more able to kind of collaborate and talk and share best practice that we didn't previously. So I think that's been great to see, and we've been able to bring these groups of people together in things. Like in London when we had a volunteer engagement week and actually sit down and talk. So I think there's a lot more opportunities there for collaboration. I don't think we've perfected it just yet, but I think there's signs of being able to kind of move forward and be one really.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough, isn't it? I mean, when I took over the brief of the member engagement team in beginning of 2020, which is when obviously we were preparing for another year like any other, and we're expecting to continue in the same vein, and then that all completely changed overnight. And I think it's fair to say, and don't think I'm being too controversial here, that there have been some winners and losers from the COVID era in terms of volunteer communities. So it's certainly the case that we've talked about some of the positives here, that there have been some learnings and some broadened experience that we can get from being able to engage international members into boards and committees and to do volunteering activities. But there have also been some no, I don't want to say casualties so much, but there have been some communities which have struggled to find their feet in the post-COVID world, haven't there? What are we what are we doing? What are we doing about that to try and sort of build back after the pandemic?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I think a lot of what we see or what we're hearing is it's been the absence of those kind of physical face-to-face interactions and opportunities where we've seen a lot of people drop out. Particularly me and the team, along with the various operating boards, are trying to work together to see what we can do. So whether that's in the UK, for example, the Our Members Board last year spent a lot of time trying to find regions where maybe we've lost a lot of committee members and volunteers, and trying to put on an event there to support them, to bring those people together. It seems to be working, but it's very kind of small, slow steps, obviously. And it's been easier for us to kind of target that UK regions so far. And now I think there's a mammoth task of some of the more international regions that we need to work on. So it's an ongoing process.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So there's proactive work underway to try and identify where the activity might have slowed down, and it's also worth I'm just letting everyone know at this point there has been a research project which has been undertaken by an agency, and some of our attendees may have even contributed to it, where members and non-members, in fact, as well, have been asked their views about the institution and what's important to them. And we are this year undertaking quite a extensive bit of research into what community means this day and age, and we're hoping to get some good findings out of that by the end of the year. One thing that is clear, though, is that that comes up pretty highly every time we do these surveys, is that something that members are interested in is giving back to the community. And one of the most important areas, and according to our members, is being able to showcase engineering as a career, as an option for younger people, and that fits very well with our charitable objectives. So, Joyce, can you give us some insights into the work that we're doing in the education space that will hopefully demonstrate an impact that our volunteers can make?
Definitely. So in our education and outreach space, we have a number of programs that reach out to various communities. So we have a lot of work with young people, and then so that goes all the way up into the professional grades. So in terms of our outreach program, we have STEMazing, where we have about 385 women in STEM delivering over 130,000 experiments. We've had STEM Learning, which has had over 3,000 active ambassadors this year, with an engagement in schools, about just over 3,000 schools engaged, and also 158 non-school groups. We also have Primary Engineer, where we've had over 1,000 engineers support 700,000 hours of engagement in 2022 and 2023. So all these things would only be possible with the contribution of our members as volunteers. We reach out to a number of schools, a number of students. We also support teachers in that aspect as well. We've got very good partnerships with Engineering UK, which supports some of our programming. Additionally, we've got great partnerships too with the BBC and the DFE in delivering our education and outreach programs.
Excellent, thanks, Joyce. I think that segues quite nicely into something I wanted to talk about, which is the acknowledgement, perhaps, that although we are a large membership organisation, we have over 100,000 members. We are still one of 39 professional engineering institutions in the UK, countless more globally. We do have umbrella organisations like Engineering UK, then there's the Engineering Council, of course. I think one of the perspectives that I've noticed is the increasing importance of partnering in this day and age. I think we recognise that in order to have a greater impact, we need to be looking more externally in what we do. I was initially hoping to have a panelist who is a member of an external organisation, but unfortunately it fell through at the last minute. But I think we've got some really good international, some good external perspectives here. What are we doing in terms of, what else are we doing in terms of partnership work? We're working with the Young Members Board does something called Chain, doesn't it? And then there's the Early Careers Professional Engineering Council. You, Angie, you just able to just give a very brief, just as overview of the things that we do as an organisation to sort of broaden our external perspective a little bit through those bodies.
Yeah, so I think Young Members is a great example. Like you just mentioned, we've got Chain, which was developed by one of our own young members, Nikki Valentine, about 10 years ago now. And the idea is that it's an event for young members where you collaborate with various other PEIs to put on an event of inspiring talks and allow individuals to hear about the benefits of a professional body and in the hope that you join one. Attached to that, Chain has expanded, so we now also see other organisations with an engineering link partnering with us. So kind of like the Royal Engineers, Engineers Without Borders, STEM Learning. So that's a really good one there. You also mentioned IMechE, or the Early Careers Engineers Professional Engineering Committee. For those of you that don't know, this is a group. It's been developed in more recent times, consisting of 26 members from various PEIs. And the secretariat support is provided by the Royal Academy. And here again, it's kind of focusing on getting the views of young members across the different PEIs to look into education and skills, how to support those engineers, global responsibility and volunteer support. And then I think we also have a number of partnerships internationally. So first of all, we have a few joint groups. So in countries such as, Cyprus, Malta, where IMechE itself might not have enough base of members, we collaborate with the other institutions like the civil engineers to form one group. And And also we have several partnerships and memorandums of understanding internationally. So I think just last year we have one now with the Institution of Engineers Singapore, the Institute of Engineers Malaysia, and the Philippines Society, just to name a few.
That's right, and we're certainly looking to broaden our global perspective, but certainly outside the UK. Okay, so I'd like to sort of get into some practical areas now. So these are all great examples of the kind of things that we do. What advice would you give? This I'm going to direct this to you, Supun. What advice would you give to somebody who has heard all this and is interested in becoming an IMechE volunteer? What would be your advice to get, as somebody who's done that journey themselves? What would be your advice to get set out?
Yeah, I think the first point is reach out to your regional young members panel. I think that's a great place to start. On the website, there's a function called Near You, which tells you about all the regional activities that happen. But definitely, I would recommend that's a good place to start. If you have a technical specialism of interest, definitely reach out to that particular group within the IMechE. That's a great way to start as well, depending on how you want to start. Do you want to start sort of with a technical bias through a technical specialism, or do you want to start sort of from the regional side of things? So there's different ways you can get in. So definitely reach out, ask the question. Have that confidence to reach out and ask the question, right? And the IMechE is one of the most supportive, it is, very supportive organization, always actively looking for volunteers, and you can really make a difference. So please reach out, find out how you can get how you can get involved. And if you want to reach out to me personally, I'm sure that's fine. Rob can share some of the details, and I can help you out. I think the other one you want to do as well is volunteering takes time. It takes time out of your day job sometimes. So I think it's important that you discuss your intentions with your employers. If you're a young engineer, make sure set those expectations around the time commitment and understand what's the level of support your employer can provide here as well. I think that's important to mention.
Okay, thanks. Let's think about it from the other side. What can we as staff members do to make that easier for you and your fellow volunteers?
I think from the employer side of things, I think definitely maybe a bit of a one-page pitch to employers who aren't proactively supporting IMechE volunteering today. Maybe some of the small organizations that are starting out, maybe like a one-page summary. What's the benefits of volunteering, both to the employees and also to the employer? Right? We talked about the employee side of things, around motivations for volunteering, which is the personal development side of things, the skills growth, all that stuff is going to be great, which will help the employer. But also there's an element of we are a prestigious institution. What's that partnership with the IMechE going to bring to that brand of the employer? Right? Because you're in the engineering community, and if you've got a good range of a good proportion of, say, professional registered engineers or proactive volunteers with the IMechE, that improves your brand's perception in the engineering community as a serious engineering company because of that partnership with the IMechE. So I think if staff can help highlight that and help aspiring volunteers to have that conversation with employers, I think that would help, especially smaller companies. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm minded actually to post a link into the chat, if such thing's possible. I think it is. Yeah, I've actually just posted a link into the chat for the IMechE's membership partner program. So this is a scheme which was launched a couple of years ago now for employers to have a relationship with the IMechE that is more than just about the relationship of their employees with the IMechE, and it's in recognition of the fact that organisations are looking to get more benefit, I suppose, out of the professional relationships that their employees have. And I didn't set you up for that with a view of being able to just pitch that, but I just thought actually it's quite relevant that is something that our attendees might be interested in seeing. So yes. Anyway, that's a really good point. Supan, we could provide, couldn't we have some more information, some cheat sheets perhaps for volunteers to be able to take to their organisations. I'm going to ask you, Joyce, actually. Now, you have a lot of a portfolio of volunteer roles. As a volunteer yourself, how has that enabled you to have more impact in the roles that you've performed as an employee over the years?
Yeah, definitely. It gives you a greater understanding of an organization without having to be directly involved in it in the every day-to-day. It allows you to see things more widely as well. I think the one thing I really value out of my volunteering roles is the impact that gets made. So, it's when you're in the weeds, it's very difficult to sort of see the wider picture. And by being a volunteer and sitting on volunteer boards, it allows you to also connect things that other people might not see. So, whether it's I make a connection with an academic association, or if I make a connection with a corporate organization, that maybe the organization hasn't been able to sort of see, because I sit sort of on the outside and can contribute that way. And for me, it's getting to know people. I'm very outgoing. All the roles that I've done in the past are very externally facing. So for me, it's really good to actually build those relationships and then sort of see where you can help the organization you're volunteering with progress in what they want to do. And then, on the impact side of things, it is all about, what is the change that you're looking to elicit, and keeping that in mind, and it helps focus the goal and focus the work that you're doing, because it's very easy to get sort of sidetracked or to go off on tangents. But once you have an idea of what's the change you're looking to make by engaging in the volunteering, then that's very helpful.
Okay, that's a really useful watchword, isn't it? What's the change you have in mind to make? So I think that's where we as an organisation are always trying to keep in mind, and I feel like that's something that we should be kind of focusing more on going forward. Angie, I'm going to ask you, because I'm aware that you have given up volunteer days to volunteer for the IMechE recently, haven't you? So what prompted you to do that? If you could maybe just give us a bit of insight into that, what happened there?
I have. So I, the past couple of years, have used my volunteering days that we get at the institution to actually volunteer to help build a track and extend a track for the Railway Challenge. I think it's the enthusiasm of our current volunteers. And I go to, for example, the Railway Challenge every year, and it's so inspiring and amazing. Not only the IMechE volunteers that are running it, but also the participants and also the volunteers at the site. So I think I'm always a bit jealous that I want to get involved and do those things as well. So yes, it's been really rewarding, and I've really enjoyed it. But it's just the enthusiasm, I think, that's there, and being able to see the impact that you can actually make. Because I think, as Joyce mentioned, sometimes when you're too in it, you can't necessarily see it, but something like that, you can actually see after a weekend's worth of work what you've done.
So I think that really highlights the one team approach that the new strategy has really emphasised, which I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that wasn't made explicit before. In the past, it was the organisation I joined very much felt there's the members and then there's the staff, and we support each other to a certain extent, but there is a clear definition. Obviously, there have to be clear legal definitions in terms of employment contracts and volunteer roles are very different. But an area that I feel quite passionately about is the blurring of the lines wherever we can, because I feel that we staff and members work best when we do respect and encourage each other's professional expertise and learn a bit from each other. I feel like that's when things really start to gel and start to work well. So I think it's great that you volunteered to do that work, and with the volunteers alongside them, I feel like it really helps us move along. There's actually a couple of questions in the chat. There's one that I'd quite like to just pick out now from Michael Anna. Can you start volunteering without having too much expert technical background? I mean, the short answer to that is absolutely. I wouldn't recommend trying to join one of the technical divisions and groups boards if you don't know anything about the subject. But a great example I was just thinking of there is like you just said, Angela. You're not an engineer, but you can help build some track at the at Stapleford Miniature Railway. The challenges, I would say, the competitions are great examples of where you can get involved. So you'll be the attendees may be aware of Formula Student, the Railway Challenge, and other examples, the Apprentice Automation Challenge. You can join the volunteer workforce for these events without having specific technical knowledge. There are some roles that require technical knowledge. But there are dozens of other roles, and they will be advertised shortly on the new volunteer portal, which we are hoping to be releasing soon, where it will give you an insight into exactly what the prerequisites are for the role. Quite often, it's all you need to have is the time and the commitment, and we really are keen to get a range of new perspectives and new just fresh blood, different views, as Sup was saying earlier. The diversity of the group that he volunteers for is motivating and inspiring, and I think we all accept now that we are a better organisation the more perspectives we're able to include. And so, yeah, I do think that's something that we should encourage more. I kind of answered that question myself, but in the interest of time, I think we do have a couple of other questions, and I don't want people to feel shortchanged here. Murat Islam has asked about how are we recognising existing volunteering teams in local, regional, and global divisional committees, and how do we measure the impact they are making? How do we even describe the impact, and how clearly have we communicated it to our volunteers? Can I invite the panel to put some perspectives on this? I don't think we expect a fully formed answer, but I'm interested to hear your views.
I think I can maybe start with what do we currently do? And I think this is an area that, if we're honest, we need to do a lot more. We have definitely not perfected this, because we've got our formal recognition in the sense of the prizes and awards we offer, but that doesn't really focus necessarily on the volunteering and on that local level. So I think there is a lot that happens, but it is not necessarily consistent in approach, and it's very much based on individual regions or committees doing things. What I would say to anyone that's listening is please do reach out to particularly the member networks team if you do have volunteers that you would like to formally recognise or thank. We can help with again some certificates or token IMechE gifts or acknowledging that support. So please do reach out. But yes, a lot more work needs to be done. So any feedbacks or ideas or things that you've done, please do let us know.
I concur. Joyce, please.
I'll take the second part of that question in terms of impact and how we measure impact. We'll be talking a bit more about that as the year goes on. Rob said I've just come into the role, but again, we're looking at change, however small it might be. So, if we're working on projects that involve young people and their engagement, have they increased, or has their knowledge of engineering increased? Are they more likely to want to go into an engineering field? Has that changed their attitude towards engineering? So measuring those small things is where we're going to start. Sort of the bigger aspect of things in terms of measurement. That's more long term. And then how do you describe impact and communicate it clearly to our volunteers? It is looking at level of change. It's looking at what's changed by the intervention, the programs, the projects that we're working on. And we're always looking for that level of change. What is it that we've done that has made a mark, has made people think to themselves, think differently, behave differently? That's what we're talking about in terms of impact.
Absolutely. Great. Okay, I'm gonna round up the panel with what has been flagged as a good closing question. What's been your most memorable moment in volunteering? Anyone want to volunteer?
Go first. I think the Young
go
Members
on,
Board
Suki.
strategy weekends are definitely memorable. So much energy in the room. There's so much discussion around a wide range of topics, and for me, every that strategy weekend is absolutely memorable.
I concur. Having attended one recently, I have to say it was the best meeting I've been to since being at the IMechE. The quality of the ideas exchange was fantastic. I was really inspired after that. That's also where I met you, Super. So that was very memorable. So, what about you, Joyce? You've done a lot of volunteering.
Yeah, I would say it was when I was working with IMechE. It's a charity based in East London that helps young people come up with creative ideas around innovation, sort of product design, that sort of thing. And it was when one of my mentees actually won a local award for the work that she was doing in supporting women and babies in the East End. So that was definitely my favorite. And I always loved going to the IMechE graduation ceremonies, where you can see sort of how much change these young people have done in their community. So it's always nice to see that.
Fantastic. That must have been very rewarding.
That's great.
Anjali, do you have one? Or oh, she's gone. Okay, I think we lost Anjali. For me, my most memorable moment was when I accidentally broke my leg whilst volunteering once. So I'll that wasn't for the right reasons, unfortunately. But I'll pass you back. Anjali's back now, so I'll pass it back to her.
Sorry, pressed the wrong button. I think for me, again, strategy weekend is always amazing with your members. But for me, I think it was International Extravaganza that we held at One Birdcage Walk not long after the pandemic, and had various of our operating boards in town. But it was just so great to see people after the pandemic, people that I'd never met face to face. And there were so many challenges that week. There was a heat wave, the Queen had passed away. So it just really brought us all together even more so that week, which was just great.
Exactly. Great. Okay. Well, I'm gonna say thank you to all the panelists. There are don't head off yet. There's just a couple of just one thing I wanted to share with you all as a bit of a plug for the next event in this series. But before that, I do want to say very heartfelt thanks to everyone for joining in today. It's been a really interesting discussion, and I think we've turned the dial a little bit on this topic, and I've got some really good ideas. I think Joyce and I need to sit down and talk about how we've got a lot to plan here. But I really do appreciate the questions. I appreciate the engagement from the attendees and from the panel as well. So if we could just quickly share this slide. Yeah, so on Wednesday at 12, there will be another panel discussion hosted by the new chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Holly Rees-Barkle, and it is called The Value of Inclusion, Exploring the Perspective of Lived Experiences. So I do recommend attending that. I'm sure it'll be a really enlightening conversation. And of course, the other lunchtime webinars that we have planned over the year, as well as the initiatives that we are launching to support and recognise the volunteer community. So, attempting to keep within the hour, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you again for joining, and I hope to see you at the next event. Bye now.